What's going on, boys? Thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff, arm yourselves, life stuff. My video sense has been shot lately, but this is something I want to talk about, so we will find a way to make it work. I like to think people who have been hanging around the channel for a while are able to read the vibe. In other words, you understand what I'm saying, even if either I don't manage to fit it in a video, or I don't know the words for it. But that's a dangerous game, even when you're working actively against it. Even worse when you're beginning to rely on it. When I say things like, diversity is our strength, but multiculturalism isn't, people sometimes latch onto the first part of that and imagine something completely opposed to what I mean. I am not suggesting a hold hands, rainbow, kumbaya thing. That's not at all what I mean in a general sense, or in all of the specific senses you could try to apply it to. Prejudice is a huge part of who I am. And in a world like this, prejudice is useful, on the condition it's a tool you're using, not that you are a tool used by it. So when I say something like, queerness is important, and we need to study it and take lessons from it for spiritual reasons, especially on the trans side of things for right now, I am not talking about drag queens reading stories to children, or putting your pronouns in your bio. Which, tangent while we're here, that's interesting. Why did it become pronouns specifically? Was it the ease with which people could slot in or mix and match pronouns? The implementation, these bastards hiding the magic from us, I think it's another instance of using an avenue to create wishy-washy, non-committal interference rather than using that avenue the way I think it should be used, which is focusing. If we're at a level of mimetic evolution, we're equipped to start doing advanced gender stuff, then we shouldn't be playing with it frivolously. These are matters of the spirit. And in promoting this up in the air, wishy-washy thing, you're making the entire mechanic of gender seem wishy-washy and non-committal, rather than as a method by which we can do soul analysis. That's a tangent, but it contributes to my point. The wishy-washy shit, the non-committal shit, the right-hand path bullshit repulses me. We're on a journey of ego refinement, not dissolution. And certainly not this frivolity, which does everybody a disservice. You think you're being progressive, you think you're being open-minded and forward-thinking, but you're destroying everything in the name of wanting to think you feel like a good person. We're futurists. That's not the future. You're making a mockery of a tool. And what I'm talking about here plays a role in the racial side of this, particularly in America. Although there isn't really anywhere else on the planet aside from South America. Everywhere else is just a bunch of dirt where people happen to live for now. And the queerness stuff is touchy. The racial stuff is extraordinarily touchy. In fact, the only reason I think I'm somewhat comfortable talking about it right now is the American soul is beginning to emerge. Evolved, but untamed, maybe. And that's a lot more important because that's the monocultural unifier that I believe is not just that it is coming, but it's already here. Right now, we're in it's like an island coming out of the water, and people are swimming toward it. Some people. I open with the queerness thing because I want to make it explicit what I'm talking about. People somehow manage to misunderstand anyway, but I'd like to eliminate as many possibilities for that as possible. If you want to misunderstand, then you'll need to invent a misunderstanding vector. That'll be yours. Everything I talk about is not born out of friendliness. It's not born out of understanding in the way people usually use that word, or out of acceptance based solely on the idea that you should accept people because accepting people is the good thing to do. When I talk about things like these, I'm talking about them from a mechanical perspective, or how they relate or are important to the mystical mechanical. Because what it feels like we're doing in part, or at least what we're here to do, is help build megastructures we can't see. Whether that's the memes we need to understand, or as a society, the way or elements of a society we need to be configured, or maybe both, in preparation for what's coming, or in some other way serving our purpose. A purpose you can feel when you are fulfilling it. One that communicates directions to you via your instincts. We've talked about this enough times. I don't know how to word this. I feel I'm becoming less and more racist. Because race, both in blood and in culture, has a big part to play in this emerging island, or this rising front. Let me try to explain what I'm talking about. Oh, and maybe that's what it is. We're figuring this out as we're going. I needed to clarify the way I've been looking at things. Triply, so there are no misunderstandings, one, so nobody's misled, two, and because distinctions need to be made, and those distinctions get really tricky really quick, three. It feels like Conquer is swelling in younger United Statesians. Not all the time, but in the same way Patrice called the incel movement before it happened, it feels like a distinctly futurist American movement, and futurism in the American way, or in the mystically American way, the American mystical, is starting to kick off. And we, because we are what it is, or part of what it is, need to be ready to take advantage of it. Make it mean something. We are a wide collection of genes and specific collections of memes serving what I think is a rising mystic meme. There's not another soil, there's not another place on the planet this could be happening. Once again, exceptions made for South America. American black culture is an important conquest tool. I want to see it continue the way it is, the way it's been, and the way it will be. In other words, in this synthesis, this American emergence, blackness as media production and as culture will be important for the essential mystical monoculture. And I study black people sneakily because I think for what I am talking about, we'll get to what I'm not talking about, you're already seeing it. And not even just at the high levels, but also in many cases at the low levels. People feeling, if not, well, actually, you're beginning to see people say it too. That's happening slower, but feeling it absolutely. I am tired of losing. I'm tired of being a pussy. I want wins, and I want them now. And using that essence as a tool to make it happen. Controlling it rather than being controlled by it. I'm not talking about culturally black people who pretend they're white all of a sudden, which we'll get back to. Or maybe we won't, maybe we'll do it right now. As need is forcing us to synthesize, not becoming one. Well, yes, becoming one, but on a level, on a spiritual level. And you see that in practice, but you don't do it in practice. In other words, if a black dude decides all of a sudden he's going to act white, and it's almost like a phony identity, little rebellion, fashion statement thing. Same thing with white people who all of a sudden act black, but you can tell there's no soul or purpose behind it. Hardly any within themselves, certainly not on any national level. That's embarrassing. But you're beginning to see multi-class doors opening up. Meaning, if a black dude feels called to do something essentially white, it's not a fake, it's not a farce, it's not a show. You're beginning to see these doors be open and people be able to step through them and it click right on that essential level, in which you can feel that this is what is supposed to be happening. This isn't a show, this isn't a joke. And you're seeing it in the inverse too. And why are we not talking about other races here and cultures? Because, no offense, in terms of race and culture and soul, I think you need to go beyond those three words. There's some vein underneath them, and I think I already said no offense. If I didn't, no offense again. Only a few of them matter. Patrice O'Neill talked about it in the strictly racial sense, this is a race war and races have picked sides. That, but on a spiritual level, if you aren't culturally or racially, quotes, white, black, or Hispanic, you will be, necessarily. But it doesn't matter, or it's beginning to matter less because of this synthesis. They aren't merging all into one, but they're all, if they're strands, they're all weaved into the same rope. What do I mean in a practical sense? And if you saw this rope forming on a street, what would that look like? People from different places who look, sound, and act in different ways, one, all communicating and understanding one another, without needing to make these phony, I wanted to use a word that started with G, but we're already in offensive waters, not making these silly concessions for one another. Two, all focused on the same goals. And three, making available paths and resources to make achieving these shared goals easier. It is popularly embarrassing to watch the suburban white kid act black, but it's equally embarrassing when the 16-year-old kid from Detroit is dressing like a redneck and trying to be a redneck. Both of you, stop being phony. We're reaching a point that's unnecessary. Be what you are, and you and the union will be stronger for it. But there's an addition to that. In some instances, there are 16-year-old black kids from Detroit who are integrating with these traditionally white cultures and groups, and it's working. And even outside that, this growing of the soil American tribal desire to win is making getting along both easier without needing to, or feeling like you need to be phony, without faking it, and also benefiting from not being phony. It's an odd contradiction. We are synthesizing spiritually while not synthesizing mimetically. Although you are beginning to see instances of that happening on that mimetic level and it being true, righteous. If your goal is to conquer the world, you don't want black people not to be black people. From a traditionally white perspective, the doing weird shit for reasons you don't understand, pushing popular culture forward, living to examine a different side of the American spirit, a different face of it maybe, like we talked about with the Venus and Hecate thing. This is turning into that masculinity and femininity video. I need a fucking graph. Up top, the one emerged American spirit. Down below it, the pure strain mimetic cultures. I called them last time subcultures, but we'll call them American cultures, maybe different masks of the one soul. These are mimetic, to be sure, but they carry with them, at least for now, ethnic or genetic tendencies, and then below those you see the adherents. Although, now that this one soul has emerged or is emerging, and we're beginning to get in touch with our spirit again, you see both the mimetic cultures, while not synthesizing, they're already linked, cooperating more. You're seeing that a lot more in their adherence, and you're seeing adherent overlap or upspringing. You don't want white people to be non-imperial. And we talked about this a while ago. In the United States, even when whites are trying to perform progressivism, they're doing it in an enforcing imperialistic way. You don't want, if your goal is to conquer the planet, you don't want white people to forfeit that goose-stepping nature. And although I'm ashamed to admit it, I haven't studied the Hispanic line as much, even though where I grew up you'd think that would have been a guaranteed thing. Florida is weird, but for now, although it's a gross oversimplification, we're missing absolutely everything. Capitalism strikes me about the Hispanic spirit. And once again, we're talking mimetics, not genetics necessarily. That meme is very good at trading, at least in my experience, but we have an eternity to figure this out. Because the United States is eternal. I don't know if you know this. I don't know if you've written a letter recently, used a stamp. It's USA forever. The United States is the genetic, mimetic Avengers. And as Saint O'Neill said, anyone who's tried to bring white and black people together, or all the races together, and could have, got killed. And I think that's why the race paradigm we're still dealing with in the United States was pushed so hard. It's why boomers and Gen X are obsessed with divisive race. And, okay, cutting in, I had to cut that train of thought short because I had the answer and then I lost it. The race paradigm we're still dealing with was pushed so hard before, was pushed to keep people from understanding this spiritual synthesis. They make race look like this or that on the meme sense, the way Europeans make genetics look like this or that. So you're thinking about it as a this or that fight. And it's not a this or that fight. The United States figured that out about genetics already. Europeans are as far behind us spiritually as they are in comedy. We're getting uncaught in the meme race trap. It's not a matter of one culture defeating another culture or agreeing to disagree. That's a fucking retarded European, lesser, inferior way to look at it. It's a matter of attunement with the soil, with the blood of liberty. We can look different and even think and act different without being different. That's the next evolution of the United States. Stronger because of it, not in spite of it. As we are genetically, so can we be memetically, and therefore spiritually. You think the United States has too much influence over the planet right now? You wait until we have this figured out. And we're getting there. It's happening. The soil wants it to happen. We want it to happen, because it means we win. And Americans love nothing more than winning. That's why this racism, mimetic shit was such a powerful trap. Because they took synthesis and tricked us into believing it was a victory and defeat thing. And that's not the case. Our enemies are foreign, not domestic. The soul of the blood and the soil is our leader. It has a plan. It's a matter of attuning with that plan and refusing to be diverted. And who is they? I think it's people trying to play God, ultimately. People who believe they or their little clubs have, through any number of means, managed to become greater than the soil, greater than the blood. People who believe you are theirs to control and do with as they please. Not gods, not the soils, not the bloods. And they're bad at it. They're as subject to it as any other human would be, because all men are created equal. We know this. I think they believe they're above facts. And not material plane facts, but spiritual facts. And they aren't. And they will be made to realize that. It's just a question of time and severity. But let's step back a few times and clarify as we did in the beginning. I am not talking holding hands and singing Kumbaya. I don't envision a world in which we all get along. That would be nice, but that's not what I'm talking about, and it won't happen that way. In fact, I don't view the United States and its citizens at large right now even as affected by this emergence. I think I think it'll radiate out and begin to affect more people or make itself available to more people over our lifetime. But it seems to me this change I'm feeling, this and seeing this direction, this path to this strange synthesis, like some Morrowind shit, the one and not one. This seems to be strongest and mostly isolated to younger generations, at least for right now. People whose. I don't know how to say it, but tastes for the way life should be across our cultures changing from what they're supposed to be and aligning with one another independently. As in, I don't see any one thing that's kicking this off, it's just happening. Meaning it's probably a mystical thing. Not just wanting wins, but also getting fed up with aspects of your cultures and the people around you who both, well, words. They're making it difficult to use your most familiar cultural tool, your home culture. They're fucking it up. Because you live in it and because your values are shifting, you see the ways you could use your culture as a tool to secure the life you want and probably these days be or help build a conquering team. But people around you don't want to allow that to happen. In other words, you're beginning to see the way you can take what you are and turn it into victory and freedom. But what the people around you are doing is, or people who are supposed to be like you, are emphasizing the losing and controlled, subjugated, submissive side of things. Although I'm talking about all American cultures right now, because I think that's the state we are finding ourselves in, I'll talk about it from the white culture point of view. And I'm willing to bet you'll feel parallels in whatever background you come from. In my eyes, quotes white culture, which I should have no claim to, on its positive or powerful sides, strikes me as systemic and unapologetic, unfeeling control. Dehumanization and the power that comes with it, essentially. My ability not to look at you as a person and not to feel I owe you any common decency or understanding or empathy, but to treat you however you need to be treated that will benefit me best. When you remove the masks and the lies and the niceties, that's what it is. And when you aren't being an ashamed, holding yourself, crying, telling yourself you're a good person pussy, that's a really useful tool. You need to be able to do that if you intend for you and your side to beat other people and their sides. That's what we are. But we're ashamed of being that way, or we're afraid of being that way. Probably the powers that be are encouraging us not to be that way, but you can't change what you are, so it comes out as institutional, vaginal passive aggression. In all of us. White people are responsible for HR departments. White people are responsible for the word inappropriate. White people are responsible for those cunty, passive-aggressive smiles and little comments. And of course, other cultures, other people do these things, but we engineered them. And why did we engineer them? Because we can't change what we are, but we're afraid of being what we are, we're ashamed of being what we are, made to be ashamed of what we are. But you can't change what you are, so you find ways to get the poison out acceptably. That's why I can't call someone a cunt on YouTube unless I'm making the video. I can't do it in the comments without getting censored. It's like a deep shame for the evil that comes with our strength. But that part of you will always be there, so you do it in an even more shameful way, but in a way that is powerful to nobody and nothing except the status quo. As long as we are passive-aggressively arguing about politics with one another and trying to keep the dehumanization on a left-right policy side of things, and then acting like that's not what we're doing when we get called on it, it's accomplishing nothing. It's standing... That repression is standing between us and our power and what needs to be done to certain groups outside this country that need some white people things done to them. For daring to fuck with the United States. For daring not just to play God, but to play God and step on our shoes. There needs to be consequences for that. White people are the consequence givers. And also other races who have been called naturally and accepted naturally into the ministry of white people. We're a diverse organization now, but it's the organization that does systemically damnable things, necessarily damnable things, but we're afraid of even acknowledging that that's what we are inside, much less to take that and use it toward anything useful. In other words, or another way to put it, I feel attacked both by my own people and also by an aspect of my identity that is afraid or resentful of wanting to be anything strong. I feel attacked by my cultural shadow for wanting to embrace my cultural shadow. See, what they've done is they have taken your cultural identity, and sicked it on you. I don't know how I would word this for black people because I'm not black, if you weren't aware, genetically or mimetically. But I guarantee you, although the specifics would change, the broad strokes would be just about exactly the same. And I know that because the Asian part of my family, it is the same thing. I brushed aside Asians earlier because Asian, at least in my view, in my racial research, American Asian spirit is the same as American white spirit, except a little more autistic. The words would be very different, but again, the broad strokes the same. And I guess while we're here for the exercise, what you are, the Asian part of your soul, what it is at its base, is a desire for supremacy by comparison. where the white part of your soul is out to dehumanize and subjugate the Asian part of your soul. It's more to dominate, which I think is different from, or domination I think is different from subjugation. I don't know how I'd word that. Subjugation's a lot more sexual. Oh, here's a way to put it. The Asian part wants to dominate by climbing highest. The white part wants to subjugate by shoving lowest. But there's this push and pull shame that comes with excellence. Like you're supposed to be excellent, the best, but also humble and utterly unremarkable, seen, not heard. So this desire to dominate gets shoved into arenas that don't mean anything. You should be researching how to start a business, supply a demand, and do that really well and dominate that way. And the same thing with the white people and the HR and stuff. That all that white shit is subjugation, but it's the pussified, self-useless form of it. So for the Asian side of your soul, you're not trying to build a business, you're studying oboe. Yeah, your first chair trumpet or some shit. You're really dominating. And thinking about it, this is good. I like making videos in this fashion because it makes me think about things. This is therapy. This explains a lot. White and Asian, the genetic spiritual desire to climb up top and shove everyone else down, repressed to the point it flips back and forth. And sexually, I'm all kinds of fucked up, you know that. And it all comes from the denial of the shadow of your mimetic, somewhat genetic, racial nature, cultural nature, only to be attacked by the malignant aspect of that race and culture, both in yourself and in the people around you, guaranteeing you never become powerful, you never know who you are or what you're capable of, and neither do your people in the racial and cultural sense on the small level. One of the servant meme cultures of the grand monoculture, and you as the whole, as the nation, all of you, all of us, never claim our power and synthesize the one and not one and do Lady Liberty's bidding. Not in terms of our shitty state, but in terms of our blood and our soil. This is not a holding hands kumbaya thing. The great, or the potentially great, and the patriots, the true blooded patriots, are constrained and attacked and suppressed by drones who think they are anything like us. They aren't people. They are servants designed to hit you closest to home, where it'll hurt you the most and trip you up the hardest. What needs to be done? I think you need to stake a claim on your cultural shadow and make it yours first. Don't let them limit your potential. Don't let them take what's yours from you. for pride reasons and for practical reasons. And then, when the nation calls you to do it, the Ghost of Liberty, recognize other patriots heeding the call, and then, together, do whatever it is you need to be doing. I don't know what that'll be, but I'm willing to bet when you cross paths, you'll have a pretty good idea. You aren't going out and hugging someone of a different race because you share borders with them. That's not what I'm talking about. First, that won't end well. Second, I don't think people who don't have it in them will ever hear the call or would ever want to do anything with it because they exist. They exist to transmit pain and demoralization to you. It almost feels like some paratrooper shit, ODST shit. The new breed has landed, but we're all over the place, and like the rookie, our goal right now is to link up with our squad. Or if not that, then at least to be aware of this, probably more to be aware of this emerging, spontaneous, unifying theme underneath everything. That's what I'm talking about. That's what, if I could ask you to do anything to be aware of and to pay attention to. I think I got it. We'll cut it here. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.